Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to start the meeting with one of our favorite topics, logistics. So just a couple quick things. One, you all have the call-in number just in case there's any audio issues. Please, feel free to call in. Feel free to still get your friends to call in. If there's any questions, please save them. So any of your brilliant questions, we'll have a Q&A towards the end. So definitely write them down, save them. We're excited for that part of the conversation. Please, I feel like this everyone here is on repeat, but definitely keep your microphone on mute, and we'll record this so everyone will get kind of a party favor at the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining. Let's get started. So we're here today to discuss decoding the E in ESG, specifically for hotels. I'm joined with some great panelists, which I'm very excited to introduce. We have experts across hospitality, sustainability, and technology. So as I read everyone's backgrounds, we're actually going to share a mini poll. So it's going to be a little bit interactive. Everyone gets the official bio from me, but we're curious to see which of the fun facts about everyone you can properly match to them. So you might see a poll come up as I'm speaking, but Zach, CEO of Kupperman Companies, owns and manages over 350,000 square feet of hospitality, retail, and mixed use assets, including, which I think is cool, 6 boutique hotels in Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, and Colorado, which also means that he's done a lot of award-winning historic redevelopment. He's also very active within the New Orleans community, including sitting on boards like the Anti-Defamation League and even French Quarter Festival. So lots of interesting things from Zach that we'll touch on in the panel. And Marianne is responsible for Highgate's ESG strategy, so everything around environmental, social, and governance, strategy, experience, operations, design, construction. She really touches the full end-to-end, including corporate culture. She was previously director of energy and environment and environmental sustainability at Marriott International, and founded a sustainability strategy firm. So she really has that great cross experience with hospitality and sustainability. So we're excited to ask her more about that. She also has both an MBA and a degree in environmental studies. So lots of overlaps in terms of finding ROI across sustainability initiatives. And Bengt has a background in international business. He's the CEO of Disruptive Technologies. He's been working across teams, especially building cross-cultural teams and high-performing teams for over 20 years. Some fun facts about him, but not the one he's shared, is that you can also find him like cooking for friends, boating, or relaxing in his mountain cabin outside of work. So let's move on to get into the agenda.
I just launched a poll, Rachel.
Okay, and here's the poll. So everyone could try to guess which one has, now that you know a little bit more about everyone, who does all natural cured ham, who drove a hearse for a funeral, and the other ones. Let's see, I'm scrolling down too. They're also surprises for me. All right, let's move to the next slide as people vote. And we'll share the results after. So today we're going to focus on one, the urgency for green operations. I think everyone knows these. We have some interesting facts that can help empower you within your organizations. We'll also share a little bit more about how solutions like Mesa can help. And then we'll dive into the meat of all of it, which is the panel discussion and the audience Q&A. And I'm going to try to go kind of quickly through the intro so we can spend the most time hearing from the panelists on the meaty questions that we have for them. Over to the next slide. So in terms of the risks of not taking action, we know that we're at a true breaking point and we have to take action now. I think the number one reason that we would take action in this industry is always around like guest preferences. What do the guests care about within hospitality? 73% of travelers are more likely to choose accommodations that are sustainable or eco-friendly. A lot of preferences we've seen change with polls over the pandemic, where people have really been rethinking their footprint. In addition to just like preferences, there's also the fact that several cities, both across the US as well as internationally, are very focused on reducing emissions. So, you know, we have guest preference as key point number one, but number two is that we all know fines are coming. We all know that regulation is coming and has in many places, especially like New York with Local Law 97. In addition to that, I feel like as we go through the numbers, they get even more and more pressing. We've all seen extreme weather. We all know that it's, you know, happening in our properties and coming for our properties. So making sure that we're both like being resilient, but also doing our part to prevent that is very important. Moving on to the next fact, which really does hit home, is just insurance premium. So we all know with wasting water, with water leaks, and overall, you know, not having real-time data within our spaces, insurance premiums can go up. Frozen pipes, anything and everything can happen, and then you're hit. You know, you're just hit with a premium. Going to the last fact is just to explain that there are changes that we can all make across the board. So it's certainly in energy efficiency, certainly in overall optimization, but also just think about operations end to end. Food waste is a big percentage of GHG emissions as well. And, you know, in addition to all of that, unfortunately, the hotel industry is up and to the right, and a chart that you don't want to be up and to the right on, which is just, you know, energy use overall. So even though, you know, most hotel rooms on average are unoccupied for at least 12 hours a day, hotels are still emitting more than their counterparts in commercial real estate. So there's a lot of room for improvement, which is the exciting part of the opportunity. And just to give you a quick intro on Mesa. So Mesa is a product that's part of Google's initiative around urban innovation and sustainability. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit more just about what the offering does. So it's intended to be a building efficiency product, a lightweight controls product for hotels that help create an affordable solution to dynamically cut energy. So what that means is that buildings get both real-time data about their spaces as well as automatic savings. So when guests are not in the space, when rooms go vacant for days, there's no need to waste both HVAC, lighting, and even outlet usage. And so Mesa really helps to automate those savings based on patterns and predicted patterns. On the next slide, you'll get a little bit more of a sense of like why we built this solution. And of course, there's many solutions out there, but what we've found in terms of trying to partner for a solution is that none of the solutions are really simple and easy to use. They don't have a great experience across all stakeholders. So buildings are, you know, multidimensional in many ways and have several different audiences, and making sure that there's a product that looks sleek and what I'd say even perhaps sexy within spaces is important, so that occupants feel comfortable with it, the building operators and managers feel comfortable, and even the owners really get a sense of what's happening within their space. And just it's affordable by design. Other products we've seen are expensive, and the expense starts at the installation process. With Mesa, we've cut installation as much as possible, doing all the commissioning within the warehouse. So when the product shows up, it's, you know, you literally open the box, the operator, the installer opens it, plugs things in, you know, and it truly is ready to go. So it's intended to be a super easy, sleek solution that can work across stakeholders. And now we're going to go into the panel discussion. So I'm going to ask a few questions to everyone, and we'll go around, and remember, please do share your questions. There'll be a Q&A at the end where you can populate your questions. So definitely feel free to continue asking as we go through this. Starting with the first question, which might be a bit philosophical sounding, how did you get here? And more specifically to everyone, just share a little bit more about your work, your journey here, and soon we'll get into like more details around the portfolio. But I'll call on people so we go in some sort of order. Just please share a bit more about your background. So Bengt, over to you.
Yeah, we have been we are a technology partner of Mesa, and our focus has been to develop a sensor platform and system that is easy to install, as you are mentioning are the key points there, but also very easy and low cost to maintain. For us, I think the self-installation is a must, together with extremely long battery life for keeping the operational cost down. Using sensors together with technology partners like yourself for collecting data in a building, and with the overall objective of reducing the carbon footprint and the energy consumption. And our focus is more on the retrofitting side, where everything is wireless. We have a gateway where you kind of can connect different type of sensors to the gateway, and you collect everything into a system like Mesa to manage your building better, looking at detection motion in the building, looking at temperatures in different rooms, and using all this information to actively control the environment and the energy usage of the building. And that's where we are coming from. We believe that technology can be a driver for enabling all these things we are talking about. And it's definitely needed to collect data from the real world to reduce energy consumption, and by that also improve the ESG footprint.
And how did you find Disruptive Technologies, or how did they find you?
No, I think it was, we are from Norway, so it's a small community in Norway, so tech community talks to each other. So I came in here through our founder talked to me because we needed to set up the manufacturing, and our sensors are very tiny, and there's been huge challenges to getting these manufactured and up running in production, and that's where I came in with my background, which is more operational efficiency and manufacturing technology. So it's been a pleasure, and I've been here for 4 years now, and we are looking forward for the next 4 years and 10 years and 20 years, because we believe we truly have a unique value proposition when it comes to easy to install and a low maintenance cost of our products. So it's very interesting to work with and motivating us to work with partners like Mesa, because it's kind of it's a greater object we want to achieve together, which is the future of sustainability. Yeah.
Great. And Marianne, over to you for just general background, like how did you get into sustainability?
Yes, so it happened at a young age. I know some of you may have understood from looking at the trivia question, might have already picked me for the Earth Club president at age 15. That was me. I saw a video in my chemistry class. So I have my chemistry professor from high school, or teacher from high school, to thank. I decided that I wasn't just going to be in the environmental club, I was going to become president, and have devoted my life to it ever since. I got an undergrad degree in environmental studies, as you already mentioned, and then got an MBA to help influence the business world. After a decade at Marriott, I was pleased to land at Highgate, which I'll talk more about our portfolio and all that we do. But yeah, it's been a long journey. I worked in the green building industry and the solar industry along the way. Have really, really enjoyed the journey for sustainability. I'm also very inspired to watch youth today and the youth activist movement really fired up about this. It makes all the sense in the world, right? We have this beautiful planet and they want to enjoy it into the future. So yeah, very excited about that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Zach, share a little bit more about how you got into this industry and real estate overall.
Yeah, so I started my career doing kind of corporate law, real estate. I was always interested in building things, building actual real estate, building companies. And I left law, I did some startup work and built a few companies, but was always really interested in real estate and was doing that on the side. And then 2016, decided to launch Kupperman Companies and go full speed into development. And we started with a small hotel. It was an old motel built in the 1950s in New Orleans that we converted into the Drifter Hotel. And we've since just kept on going and continued to build. We're based in New Orleans. There's a lot of historic buildings here, and I love doing the historic work. There's, you know, some incentives around that are helpful, but a big piece of it is also I really enjoy working on the historic buildings where you are literally working with a living, breathing piece of history with a you know, a lot of times really interesting stories. And then, you know, in New Orleans, we've had our fair share of impact from climate change around extreme weather and electricity issues and all sorts of stuff. So it's become, you know, I wasn't as into it at a young age as some of the others on here, but it's become a pretty important thing in what we're doing.
And Zach, why don't you continue to tell us a little bit more about the portfolio of buildings you manage?
Yeah, so we've got about 25 buildings or so spread out. The core is in New Orleans or Southeast Louisiana. We have some projects in Colorado and Texas and Georgia as well. A lot of them have been historic redevelopments. So, you know, buildings 50 to 150 years old. They've seen many different uses in their life, and we have traditionally gone in, done, you know, a gut full renovation, and you know, worked with different stakeholders in the community. It's always been, you know, important to kind of, as you're going through the process, figure out how to become part of the fabric in the community rather than, you know, kind of a pariah when you're doing some work. So that's community engagement's been a pretty big piece. We've got 6 hotels now in the portfolio. 4 of them are based in New Orleans: Hotel St. Vincent, Drifter Hotel, Catahoula Hotel, and the Rampart Hotel. All pretty small, 75 keys and under. We have another one in Aspen, Colorado, and another one in Savannah, Georgia. And we're continuing to expand and to do more across the board, hotel and also mixed use and non-hotel assets.
Thanks, Zach. And Marianne, share a bit more about the Highgate portfolio.
Yes, so we have over 525 hotels, ranging from select service to luxury lifestyle. We are one of the largest owners and operators, independent operators of Marriott hotels. So I still get to be in touch with my old team, which is awesome. And then we have a lot of Hiltons, Hyatts, IHGs, Wyndham, Radisson. We have lots of brands that we represent.
And Marianne, I'm going to stick with you. I have a question now for all of you about your secrets, mainly around just secrets in leading change in the portfolio on energy efficiency and carbon reduction, especially given that hotels are some of the biggest consumers of energy and water on commercial buildings.
Yes, so when it comes to energy conservation and water conservation, there's definitely 2 camps. There's the capital improvements, and then there's more the operations. We tackle from both angles, understanding that end of useful life is really what dictates being able to do things like chiller replacements. We do leverage utility rebates wherever possible. There are rebates available for things from like variable frequency drives or VFDs to intelligent kitchen hood fans. You name it, there's so many rebates out there that the utilities offer, and that is, you know, definitely helpful when trying to get projects done. On the operations side, obviously behavior change is paramount. However, it can be challenging to get people to buy in. I mentioned the video that my chemistry teacher showed as just, you know, there is something about inspiring others that can really transform our space. We strive always to inspire our associates to want to make change, to be looking at, okay, am I thawing food under hot water? With the dishwashers, am I doing correct preventative maintenance so that I'm ensuring there aren't leaks? So people are really putting their best foot forward in all aspects of our operations.
And quick follow-up, when you're looking at utility rebates, is that very much like your team is contacting every utility to find out what's there? Are there any ways that the audience can kind of figure those out?
Well, there's websites for all of the different programs. There are custom rebates that are also available from the major utilities. You then have to reach out and go through a whole approval process for those custom rebates. We are in touch with all the major utilities. We have a big presence in New York City and a lot of the gateway markets. So San Francisco, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Miami, Boston, DC. So in those big markets, we are very much in touch with our utility reps constantly.
And Zach, your secrets on where and how you're driving change in your portfolio.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of ours have focused on the operational items, primarily because the hotels have existed for a long time. A lot of them are historic, but I would say, recycling, not using plastic. We've got some occupancy sensors in a bunch of our back of house spaces. Some of it's tough on front of house stuff to incorporate into design and experience in the right way, or it's been like that so far. We've got switching to large format, amenities in the guest rooms instead of the smaller bottles. There's probably a lot of that that a lot of you all are also doing. One of the bigger things on the capital side in the most recent hotel we just finished up was Hotel St. Vincent. We've got a pretty significant stormwater management program that is, this Hotel St. Vincent's in New Orleans. As you can imagine, New Orleans is below sea level. We have our fair share of hurricanes and other stormwater management issues. And so one of the things we did that is being done quite a lot now is we have a whole series of plumbing and underground cisterns that is designed to withhold from the public sewage system the first 1.25 inches of rainwater within our own property before it actually goes out into the public sewage system, so that the pump system, which is what keeps us dry, doesn't get overwhelmed. And that's a really big thing. That's been a big success. I think there's been a lot of efforts around the city to do that. And it's big, it's a big investment we made, not a cheap one. And honestly, a big hassle to go through and implement, but it was the right move to make. And it's something that's been working well.
Wow, that's amazing. I really do always appreciate hearing from you across the years of working together across different Climate events of like what's happening in your hotels and properties. And Bengt, over to you, just curious if like any of your hotel customers, there's almost one secret or one thing that they've been focused on where you've seen some commonalities.
I think there are several things there, but I think one of the most important thing we see, I think Zach mentioned that as well, is kind of extend the lifetime of your assets. That's kind of what you're doing by kind of extending how long you can use a building. And I think looking at the water leakage is one area we see with more predictive maintenance, but also looking at room occupancy to see, has there been a movement in the room and is there condition on? So combining those data with the temperature in the room to see if there is something wrong with your air conditioning or heating for that sake. And I think the water leakage detection and the room temperature is where we see the most requests and where we see our sensor contributes the most as it is now. But then you have other areas like your food management. Is my food safe? Am I unsecure about that? Well, monitoring the data and temperature of your food will kind of give you some calm to judge, is this still safe to eat, and then avoid food waste, which is another topic I think will be very, very popular going forward, especially when hotel chains trying to reduce their plastic consumption that was mentioned here. And then basically you need to store it more correctly, right, in terms of temperature. So I think those are the things we are seeing as a generic picture.
Yeah, I will echo the leak detection sensor from Disruptive Technologies is great. And we've added it to our Mesa stack too. I think that's a huge area for savings. Now going into some of the challenges, I'm curious to hear kind of one or two challenges you've each faced in introducing sustainable measures in hotels. Let me start again with Marianne.
Well, I'm thinking challenges of today, right? This is quite a moment in time with all of the labor shortage challenges and supply chain challenges that we're facing. We have a single-use plastics elimination program that's very robust. It's a phased approach, but even with the readily replaceable items that properties have implemented, I get calls, people saying, I can't even get cups, let alone compostable ones. So supply chain challenges have been very real, and it hasn't shifted in a dramatic way. We also, on the labor side, obviously, that makes everyone strained. So having people be able to be proactive with their utilities to talk about rebates, or to be looking at their data in a detailed way to make sure there's no water leaks, that kind of thing. Things get slipped through the cracks when people get strained. So those are some current challenges.
Yeah, I mean, those are huge, and I feel like you see them everywhere without totally, almost realizing what they are. Zach, over to you. I'm curious what challenges you've been facing.
Yeah, one, believe it or not, is kind of staff training and actually implementing the changes at the operational level. One example that comes to mind in New Orleans, believe it or not, recycling, Orleans Parish does not have a citywide recycling program. And so you as a hotel or any other property, you can choose to recycle, and there are private groups that do that, which we do. But education of staff is turns out to be really big. In cities where there's been recycling forever and it's ingrained in everybody's mind, it's not a big deal. But we for Hotel St. Vincent, when we recently opened 9-10 months ago, having when recycling isn't an afterthought and everybody just does it, really getting that ingrained into the operational procedures and just top of mind has been a challenge. We've done a good job overcoming it, and we're in a really good place now. But starting off, trying to figure out the staffing side and the third-party contracting side on just something as basic as recycling was a challenge.
And Zach, I'm curious on the training piece. Did you create training programs, or did you what are some of the ways you started to solve that?
Yeah, internal training programs, and it was more about really focusing on changing the behavior and having it be top of mind on exactly how the procedure should work, what needs to be recycled, and really focusing on kind of hammering that home as a key component, to as big of a key component as all the other daily things that the team needs to focus on.
And I also feel like across the board in energy efficiency and sustainability training is tough, because even just to get the solutions into buildings, there's a whole new set of expertise needed to understand that mix of technology, building systems, and energy use. So I feel like that's a good one across, at every stage of the problem. Now, moving a little bit more into the technology side, I'm curious how each of you vets technology that you decide to use. How do you measure ROI? What goes through, what goes through both like your brain, your team's brain, the process as you're vetting, and then how do you measure ROI within that? And Zach, I guess let me ask you first, and then I'll go over to Marianne.
Yeah, we have a small team, and we don't have any real incredible technology experts. So for us, it's every single item is a cost benefit analysis, and we rely a lot of times on outside experts to help go through the variety of different technologies and programs and things, software, hardware to buy. So it's a challenge, but it's at the end of the day, it just comes down to cost benefit analysis, and not just on the energy saving side of the benefit or the cost, but also how operationally it'll impact everything we're doing. How does it impact the experience, the design, all the programmatic elements of our hotels?
Yeah, so similarly,
Go ahead.
Similarly, we rely on outside support. If something is like engineering, technical, and avant-garde, we don't want to make assumptions and take vendors' words. as gospel if if we can bring someone in that has all the expertise. So we definitely rely on outside help. We also internally, when vetting solutions, look, as he's saying, at the total life cycle cost analysis. So, okay, are there labor savings as well, or increased labor associated with this solution? How is this going to impact every aspect of, and eventually this will include things like scope 3. So when looking at the full life cycle analysis of a product and how, okay, maybe it saves on, you don't have to transport something to and from our hotels, so you don't have that scope 3 emissions footprint, because now everything's being generated on site. And I'm talking about a chemical solution right now. But anyhow, there's just so many different things to look at. And we try to make sure that we are advising our outside expert on, we want all of these elements included. Then we can run a pilot and assess, see, did we come out with all the metrics looking at where they needed to be. Additionally, I'll say that the utilities are helpful on this front as well. With their rebate programs, they want to know what the savings are, and they expect a certain amount, some of them before they'll give you the rebate. You have to prove the savings. Therefore, they like to do testing. Sometimes I'll connect utilities together saying, hey, you're all looking at window insert solutions. You should talk and compare your energy modeling approaches. Let's see if we can find a way to make this ubiquitous if it makes sense, like if the energy modeling shows that it truly has a benefit.
I also think it's really important and good to start to get ahead of just tracking emissions, even scope 3 with the new regulation, or like perhaps soon to be regulation from the SEC, at least for public companies. So it's been interesting to follow that, that conversation and see, potentially mandated reporting over time. And Bengt, I'm curious on your end, for any of your hotel owners and customers that you serve, what types of questions do you get from them, and any like common questions that they share that gives us a little bit more of a clue into how they're vetting technology?
Yeah, there are lots of these, right? And I think, as mentioned here, like you shouldn't just trust your vendors or the people that are trying to sell you something, which is a fair statement. And then I think, first of all, I think people should understand what are they trying to overall achieve, right? What is the objective with this? And can we trust the technology to give the results that you're promising? And I think very often you do a pilot. However, collecting those data and using those, we see is challenging, because it requires the shift in behavior. If that is a process change with the janitor, or if it's a process change with a guy that is responsible for the kitchen or for the ventilation system in the building, is kind of first thing you do, they challenge, is the data correct, right? And then if you don't change processes, you will never achieve any real savings either. So I think the first barrier we see is to convince them that you can trust the technology and you can take that data and confirm what we are saying. And I think that's kind of the first barrier we always see, because people trust people, basically. They don't trust the technology necessarily. And I think that's the first hurdle we have, because sometimes things are too good to be true, and people are right. And I believe there has been a lot of solutions out there, and still is, that doesn't deliver what is promised, and you end up with another problem instead. So then you have to just shift your resources to doing maintenance of the system or whatever, right? So there are a lot of these things that we see are challenges in a kind of broader scale rollout to achieve the overall arching goal for hotel owners or building owners.
And personally, I do find it challenging even to vet, other energy efficiency or sustainability, or even building controls products, because I feel like a lot of the websites sound the same or look the same. And so it's all, in my focus on this, just overall on this product and industry, I do find like how to figure out like what is the actual offering with what the website says and the flashy pictures say. Like, are there actually controls versus data collection?
Yeah, and I think also, as was mentioned here, everyone needs to create the baseline. So that's their start point. And without that, how can you prove that if it's working or not? And I think a lot of building owners or operators doesn't establish the baseline. They just want to go and do something for the sake of doing something. And I think that is also a challenge that we see as a general thing we need to work more with our clients and partners.
And within that vetting, I'm curious, Marianne and Zach, I feel like at least I haven't spoken about this with you. I'm kind of curious how you both chose to partner with Mesa. What came up for you as you were thinking about it? Marianne, you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to start. So when I initially got the email, I was attracted to, Sidewalk Labs. One of my former Marriott colleagues went to work for them. So that drew me in. And then we do have corporate-wide a big initiative around guest room energy management systems. So it's like, well, obviously, we want to look at this solution. We're definitely interested in the design and functionality. So eager to, we just started our pilot, so eager to see the results.
Yeah, for me, I love the idea that you could continuously monitor the usage and energy cost all in real time with something that was, really easy to install and that synced with all the existing systems that we had. Where we have implemented it so far, we purchased an old a hospital, and it's 86,000 square feet. It was 167 beds, and we're currently operating it now. The plan is eventually converted to 102 apartments, and part of that there's a series of kind of interesting and different technology integrations that we're working towards. But in the meantime, we didn't want to have to go do a wholesale major capital improvement on all of our energy systems, and so Mesa was kind of a perfect fit by having something that was in real time. I can look at the data immediately. 24 hours a day if I want to, and lowering energy costs was pretty key. So far we've had it, we have it installed on 4 of the 6 floors of that hospital building right now, and it's been really incredible.
Thank you. I mean, we appreciate everyone's partnership across all 3 of you. So thank you so much. A couple other kind of more lightning round quick questions. The first one that I have for everyone is about the future. So I'm curious, where do you see the future headed in sustainability, or really where do you wish that the future is headed? And especially around like carbon reduction in hotels. So if you could kind of wave your magic wand and make one wish for the future, what would it be? Marianne, over to you.
Well, we've spoken a lot about energy efficiency today, but after energy efficiency, utilizing renewable energy sources is obviously number 2. I'm happy to say that over 200 Highgate properties are powered by 100% renewable electricity. We're very excited about being able to make that commitment and feel that it is in line with other industries. In hospitality, we've been a little behind the 8 ball on some fronts. One of those fronts is also looking at like 24/7 carbon-free energy, since Mesa is now a Google company. That's, I'm sure, near and dear to your hearts. Going for 24/7 carbon-free energy is going to touch us eventually, needing that emissions factor by hours, that hourly granular data is something that I look forward to our industry broaching. And then I'll say finally, we just announced our first hotel that's going to be carbon neutral certified. So they've committed to that certification. They have a lot of pre-existing programs that have led up to this moment for them. This is the Alohalani Resort on Waikiki Beach. So that carbon neutral certification is something that I hope also spreads like wildfire throughout our industry.
I mean, I feel like it's vital for all of us to visit that hotel immediately for many reasons.
I agree.
Bengt, over to you. What's your kind of wish for the hotel industry and sustainability?
I think a lot was said here already about Marianne in terms of carbon neutral. And I think to achieve that, you have to look at alternative energy sources. And I think that's kind of the key here. How do we use energy? When do we use energy? And where does it come from? And I think that in the future, my vision is that there will be more distributed power manufacturing. and you basically have more local power generation that is kind of feeds into a building or a smaller town area or whatever, and then you are also not having the factors where you kind of rely on the long transmission lines and everything that sometimes breaks down. And also in terms of the weather conditions, that is also kind of in terms of a disaster recovery plan, there is a lot of benefits having distributed power generation. And I think that's where my vision in terms of energy is.
Zach, over to you for your magic wand.
As I've been thinking about this, really, it's come down to wishing for kind of a Mesa, 2.0 or a 10x that would work really well in a dynamic way for guest rooms, and really focuses on measuring utilization of different areas so that the usage of energy in a hotel could be really efficient when there's low occupancy, not just in the guest rooms, but also thinking about event spaces. If our event space is at 70 degrees, but is utilized like 3% of the time, that seems totally ridiculous. But there's not really a good way to manage it and having it done, on an automatic basis. So I think that wish is, seems achievable in the near future. And so that's kind of high up on my list.
Thanks, Zach. Mesa 2.0. I mean, we are very close to that. So we should talk more.
I had one more thing.
Yeah,
If there's time. I actually have two more things quickly. Electrification.
Go for it, yeah.
So definitely electrification is
Yeah.
the future for so many buildings, so not just ours. And that feeds into local law 97 and Berto. So, and even Denver now setting targets for energy use intensity. But with New York and Boston saying, hey, you need to meet these emissions thresholds per square foot. It's, this is definitely the future of where we're headed.
I completely agree. Okay. Let me ask a couple other very quick questions. So I'm curious, Zach and Marianne, is there one thing that you did that you felt like was like, this is a good bang for your buck on carbon reduction? Not including Mesa, but but everything else. Like, was there kind of one thing that you did? Marianne, go ahead.
Well, I could say, I mean, for us, I mentioned scope 3. Scope 3 is the lion's share of hospitality's carbon footprint, just like most industries. So pushing our supply chain, looking at our business travel, all of that, looking at airlines that are using sustainable aviation fuel, which is another development in our industry that's going to help in a very big way. So yeah, I would say that's probably, we really push our supply chain and are starting to collect carbon footprint data from them to get a grapple on our scope 3 emissions.
The one thing that comes to mind, there's a program here called the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, and it goes through and collects oyster shells from restaurants and hotels around Louisiana and uses them to beef up the barrier reefs and the coastline outside of New Orleans. So that's been something that's worked well at Hotel St. Vincent, and something we're proud of. It helps reduce, all those things going into the landfills, and then, helps beef up what little coastline we have left.
That's a very, very cool program. Okay, let me move on to the audience questions now. And I actually do have one more question at the end if we have time, which I'll share with you now so you can think of it. Since this is a hotel focused panel, I am curious if each of you have a kind of favorite or inspiring hotel that's not within your portfolio that you'd want to recommend to people. So if we have time at the end, that will be the last question. So let's start with this question for Zach or Marianne or both. When it comes to staff training and implementing policies at the property level, are there ways to positively incentivize staff to contribute to green practices?
So we do link compensation with some environmental measures, Right now, obviously, we can't tell properties they need to reduce their consumption year over year. It's just, it's an interesting time. So now it's project focused. So we are looking for properties to finish ROI projects to get their bonus, the portion of bonus attributed to that.
It's a great question. It's something we've thought a lot about, but we haven't implemented it yet. But it's definitely something that's top of mind.
And then another question around like what you're both doing, and even for Bengt, I think that this question can apply to you too. So I'm hearing a lot about sensor tech that's available to identify when there may be efficiency issues and provide the data to building operators. So what are the actuators other than smart thermostats that you're using in your buildings to take action on these insights that you have? Or is most of the impact realized through operational challenges, as Zach was discussing? So sort of, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, with our hotels, it's primarily been operational so far. The hospital project that we have, it's 100% Mesa, and I don't know enough to talk about the technical specs of what's in the entire system or package. Somebody on here can, but that has been the entirety of our package on the sensor side of things.
Yeah, and I would say beyond the typical guest room energy management system, humidity sensors and temperature, occupancy, that I know some of our luxury lifestyle properties have taken it more to the next level. I don't know if anyone has draperies that are automated with their EMS. I don't believe so. I haven't seen that yet. We do have a property that is testing out sub-metering in a really major way. So looking at consumption across the hotel in a very granular sense.
And I think also this is a kind of evolvement of technology where we kind of start to look at where do we have problems, and then you put in the solenoids or actuators a bit later. But typically what we see is that you can integrate with your building management system and your HVAC. That's one area. The other areas we see is more local actuators, like a solenoid on your water pipes and these kind of things if the leaks are detected. But I think right now, major part of our customers is working on collecting data to establish the facts, and then they kind of evolve on the program to have more automated regulations of the building later on.
And then another question for Zach and Marianne, what's your experience of the guest expectations around ESG? Do you see guests asking about it more? Do you engage with them on it? Do you kind of share what you're doing? How, I guess generally, like what are you seeing as it relates to expectations? Go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah, definitely on the business travel and group business side of things, there's a lot of questions, many different portals through which people are asking questions, whether it's Cvent or American Express portal, or I know within sam.gov, even for government business, there's a lot of questions pertaining to sustainability, HRS. So yeah, the list goes on. Customers are asking. As for leisure guests, that one is not as easy to quantify, but certainly leisure guests are also interested in sustainability and ESG more generally.
We've seen the same thing, a lot of comments up front on the corporate side and questions, and on the leisure side, it's more kind of after the fact. I would say anecdotally, speaking with folks in the hotel and having them mention it as a reason for booking or questions about it after the fact they booked. Harder to track on the front end side though.
And there's a few Mesa related questions, so I'll answer those, and anyone in the audience who has other questions, please add them so that I can ask them before I ask my final question. So a few questions on Mesa, and I'll read these all at the same time and answer them together. Does Mesa have a BACnet IP? Can it interface with other systems in a building, or is Mesa expected to be the single point of HVAC needs for a building? And then somewhat similarly, there's a question around, how do I know if Mesa is compatible with my hotel? So on both of those, in terms of BACnet IP, we don't have BACnet IP, although we have some tests with it, so we can definitely talk if that's an important feature given the potential opportunity. In general, it can work with other systems in the building. We'd love to know more about your building, Ben, or anyone else's building, to be able to answer exactly how it would interface. There's both access if you just want the data and information, or if you want the full dashboard and the full automation with Mesa. And then in terms of understanding compatibility, definitely reach out to us. At the end, we'll put the email up, but it's hello.mesa@google.com. We can easily vet your space for compatibility, and also let you know as we expand the offering with additional integrations, where else we'd be compatible soon within the year. And then another question just on how does Mesa help calculate carbon emission savings? So on Mesa, we do have these impact reports. So there's real-time tracking of savings and in carbon and cost and runtime. And in general, the way that it's done is both just calculating runtime savings, as well as an offering that we have, which customers can opt into and for more sub-metering. So we have partners on sub-metering, and then that can be exposed in the dashboard as well if people want that. And I think that's it on the questions. Any other questions before I ask about People's Inspiring Hotel? Let me quickly see. I think we've got all of them. Okay, so now I'm curious to hear from each of you. What has been a hotel that's either inspiring to you, or that you'd recommend, or that is highly memorable? Marianne, why don't you go first?
This is the hardest question yet. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't anticipate it.
Sorry, it was a complete surprise question.
I've been to a lot of hotels in the last 12 years. Yeah, so I guess I'll say the Laguna Niguel Ritz-Carlton, because you get to hear the ocean. You said we can't say one in our portfolio, so this is not in my current portfolio. We have a lot of hotels. I was going to say first for Highgate, but you get to hear the ocean. They have the Jacques Cousteau Ambassadors of the Environment program. So yeah, that is quite a lovely property. But there's just so many. I've been to lots of wonderful resorts and properties that are like, some places that are off the grid as well. So yeah, that's all from here.
That sounds lovely. Zach.
I've got two, both in New Orleans. One's called the Chloe, which is an old, it was renovated in an old historic mansion on St. Charles Avenue, and incredible spot, really well done. They've got a great restaurant and bar there, and just really, it's kind of the best of both worlds of traditional uptown New Orleans, but looking at it designed through a different kind of more modern lens. So that's one. And then the other one, also in New Orleans, it's called Hotel Peter and Paul. That one's in the Marianne neighborhood. It's in an old 150-year-old renovated church, and also just an incredible place. It's kind of a sanctuary and an oasis in this neighborhood, and it's an entire campus. So both of those I'd highly recommend.
Amazing. And Bengt.
Well, it's a tricky question. I probably would go to Asia and talk about some of the old colonial style rebuilt hotels. Like if you go to to Singapore, for example, Raffles in Singapore, extremely nice hotel, long traditions, old buildings, very nice experience. But I would say that what inspires me when I visit hotels is the hotels that give you the option in terms of, do you want your room cleaned every day? Do you want your towels changed every day? And give that option. I think that is a good thing for any hotel. And then people have the option to do it and not do it, right? And I think that's where the E needs to start. It needs to start with behavior of the guests also. Yeah.
Amazing. So everyone has a lot more hotels to visit on their list, both the portfolios as well as suggestions. And I'll just go back quickly to like the few takeaways and then share just how we can all get in touch. So just, start by considering what are the steps you can do? How can you optimize all of the important energy, sucks in the hotel, like HVAC, lighting, water usage, and in general, are you complying with upcoming regulation? Do you know what it is? Can you take advantage of some of the utility programs that Marianne was talking about? And is your team measuring? You can't change what you can't measure. So are you actually able to understand what's happening within your spaces? And how can you quickly get that information so that you can start to collect it to know what interventions will be most effective? And then the next couple takeaways are just, track things, track carbon, especially try to get a sense of where you can make improvements. Focus on energy management that is dynamic, that responds to your hotel's activity, definitely starting with a mix of operational changes, training, and as well as technology is an important start. And of course, consider Mesa, but in general, consider, affordable, sleek solutions that can help your building and your properties across the board become more energy efficient and reduce carbon. So kind of moving on to the very end, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining, for participating. You can learn more about Mesa on our website. You can email me, happy to answer any questions. And just in general, please, feel free to use that email to share any tips as well that we can share out to the audience. Thank you so much, everyone.